We're going to talk about sales at a crossroads. And the reason I use the term is we're standing on the cusp of another, huge innovation. This image was generated by AI, as you can probably tell, because there's some people that, seemingly just vanished. But at every great technological innovation, there have been people in the sales world that have, I think, abused it. And we stand at a crossroads because the view of salespeople from most is not really super positive right now. So what we're going to do today, this is the program summary we'll run through. We're going to navigate the terrain. So I'll talk about some market issues up front. We're going to identify where the threats are, and then give you some different ways to think about your business and to think about sales and business development in a new way, so that you can stand out and ultimately protect your margin and grow. So this is some of the work that we're going to go through in building and mapping out and get a little hands-on work. Because I find that retention is much better when you engage with it. The forgetting curve, the Ebbinghaus curve, 85% of what I say is going to be gone to the ether, within a day or two of you leaving here. But if we can stick with a couple things and give you guys some actual hands-on work, we'll have that last a lot better. So I like to start everything with a little bit of audience participation, so it's not just me talking. So when I say a word, I want you to say the first thing that comes to mind. And it's a safe space. You can say whatever you want. But I'm going to say the word, and then the first thing that comes to your mind, let it loose, okay? Deal?
Yeah.
Salesperson.
Cars.
Cars. What else?
Sleazy.
Bingo, there it is. Thank you. I was waiting for that. I was waiting for dirtbag. That's my favorite one. Selfish, pushy, annoying, right? Like that's all the stuff. That's all that we've been conditioned with our whole lives. You see it in movies, you read it in books, they make plays about it. And then unfortunately, people behave that way. Like just bought a car for my wife, and most of the people, and I'm in the business. Laura, when I say salesperson, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
A little annoying.
Perfect. Yeah, so that's what we're conditioned with, and that's what we're up against. And so, but there's super valuable things, and I would assume you guys don't want to be salespeople, right? But you've got value in your business, and you need to have conversations with other people that could benefit from your business in a way that will allow your business to grow. And so that's the different approach that we're going to take today. I'm going to start with a little background, and this came out of a lot of research that I was doing. So I started this during the pandemic. I worked for a lot of different companies, sales leadership, product marketing, and basic marketing, sales training. I always loved the idea of approaching sales in a different manner. And so what I'm going to share with you up front here is some of what I saw in the market, in the feedback. And it's my son who's recording and my son-in-law, we like to go fly fishing. And when the three of us go together, those two are usually catching a lot of fish and having a lot of fun because their flies go in the water. Mine find oak trees and bushes and snags. And so one day they were laughing and yucking it up, and they were further down the river catching all kinds of fish, and I was taking my fly out of a tree again. And I'm like, I'm not fishing. And I like plays on words. And I'm like, well, I got a not because I'm not fishing. And then I started thinking about what's not working in business. And so this image came into my head of sales knots. And there's a lot that is not working. And so I call a sales knot anything that is interrupting your ability to do business. And so if we look at it from the decision maker's point of view, especially in the B2B world, most people, including us in this room sometimes, don't want to work with salespeople. And it's because of the way that we show up. 83% would prefer to do it online, digital. And this is all generations from Gen Z to the boomers. And they believe that reps don't add any value. That's the one that really bothers me, that reps don't add any value. But that's part of the perception, that's part of the terrain that we have out there, that it's not working. If you're a CEO or in the C-suite, there's a huge frustration with sales because margins are stuck. It's expensive. They're probably coming to you sometimes like, oh, we got to cut the deal. Like if we go low on this one, we'll make it up in the future, which by the way never happens. And procurement is constantly pushing down on the deal. They want to drive it down. So CEOs are frustrated. Our buyers are frustrated. And unfortunately for the salespeople, they're frustrated too, because there's a huge amount of turnover. 35% average turnover with sales teams. That's very high. That's hard to keep track of. It's hard to build community and culture and growth. And some of the complaints are that the younger folks don't want to get into it, and those that are in it are often complaining that there's not a career path, there's not any development, because sales is one of those things that is filled with all kinds of myths and bad ideas about what really causes it to work or to not work. So it's not working for anybody. And so the three things that I want to talk about today is, how you show up, when you can show up, and how you can optimize a sales process so that'll allow you to build a business and build a revenue stream that's going to be different and give you the ability to stand out from the competitors. How do we get here? And what's some of the reasons why? And I like to build this kind of backward view so we can understand what our clients are dealing with. Well, what is sales focused on? So when you guys think about sales and when you think about salespeople, what do you think the sales industry has focused on for the past 40 to 60 years? What does sales mean to you when you hear it? What is it like? What's this?
Know, like, and trust.
Know, like, and trust. That's really good, actually, if we can do that. But what else? What have you seen people do?
Essentially, just try to get someone to buy versus knowing who your customer is. You're just trying to get everybody to buy.
Right.
Fear of missing out.
Fear of missing out. So you're probably all really excited to look at your email this morning, right? There's like all kinds of great stuff in there. You can't wait to dig into your email. How many of you answer your phone when it's somebody you don't know?
0%.
Never.
0%. And how many of you are thrilled with all the stuff that's showing up in your social media, your LinkedIn or your Facebook, where they're like, promise, if you have CEO after your name or C-suite, you're probably getting all this stuff, promising you leads, promising you an avalanche of new business, right? So what the thing has focused on, these companies represent the sales and marketing technology companies that have grown in the last 15 to 20 years. It's like $65 billion. It's enormous. And what the sales industry has focused on through all of these, unfortunately, is these two words. How can I make it easy for me to bombard all of you with my message that hopefully somebody will submit and go, I give up here, take my money. And what happened during the pandemic? When we were all locked in our homes and we couldn't go anywhere, the bad actors that had all this technology, just unleashed the messaging, the robocalling, the email. So the sales tech, and I hold my industry responsible for this, and I hold leadership responsible for this, is we focused on scale and efficiency. How do we make it easier for us instead of what we should have done? How do we make it more effective? How do we make fitness in the aerial realm, much more enjoyable and sticky and known? Or how do we identify the clients that have, the pests that maybe they don't want to talk about the fact that they got pests, but they want the pests to go away? How do we make all of that more effective? So one of the first things is just think, instead of scale and reach, start to think in terms of effectiveness or in terms of quality. Because every great innovation that we've had, from the phone to email to social, there's been bad actors, and there always will be, but there's been those that have gotten to the point where we don't answer our phones, or we don't look into our email, or we don't go into the social media. And this one is going to be loony. I've already heard fully automated robots that can do interactive voice conversations. So when they call you and you say hello, they'll say, "Hi, is this Mike?" And they can even get some of the inflections. It's already happening. The stuff that you're seeing in your LinkedIn, where they're probably picking up some obscure recommendation that you had from, 1983 or something that, where just it shows up really odd. This is going to continue. I use it a ton in my business right now, but there's also a ton that people are going to use it and abuse it. And it really helps to take a moment and step back and think, what does a customer really want? So when you look at what customers want, they really want to be heard and understood, just like we all do. We all want to have just some element of understanding of who we are and be heard for who we are. They ultimately want to have a say in what they're doing. They want to co-create their outcomes. This is one of the things that we've seen that started pre-pandemic, but is going to continue. That people want to have a say in it. They want to understand what's going on. And ultimately, the bottom three is the WIFM, like Michael shared. What's in it for me? They want their issues to be the ones that are solved. So where do we begin? We're going to talk about these three knots, and the first one that we'll go into is how we are showing up. What do you think the goal of selling is? And there's no wrong answer. So this is revenue. Even better than revenue, right? Margin. You want margin-rich revenue, right? I like to think of it as like the sales. If there's a line, you're a finance guy, so there's above the line and below the line revenue. Below the line is all the stuff I cut costs, be efficient, help drive efficiency through my manufacturing. Above the line is where I should be adding value. I should be bringing in the right customers that are going to pay full price because they're getting such a great benefit from what we're doing that it's not a price game. They're not trying to drive down margin. So we want the margin-rich revenue. What else? What is the goal of selling? Yes, very good. Zig Ziglar, who was a sales trainer from years ago, but he was spot on. He was kind of ahead of his time. You can get anything in this life you want as long as you help somebody get what they want. That's not exactly what he said, but it's pretty close. I like to think of it in terms of problem solving, problem identification and problem solving, helping somebody achieve what they want to achieve. And that involves doing more than just pitching a product. In fact, the pitching part of it is probably the least of it. It's really about understanding and trying to determine where they are trying to go. So you guys have heard of the buyer's journey, right? And there's a lot of stuff out there about the buyer's journey. How do we get them from where they're starting to ultimately where they want to be? And the buyer's journey is talked about a lot, but in sales it's often overlooked. Our marketing people probably do a great job of mapping out the overview of that, but the actual tactical aspects of getting there are where people often struggle. It's rarely this linear, and it's rarely one person. My second AI image, it's usually more like this. So how many people are usually involved in making the decision for your business?
Right now, for the main sales is me.
But like for your customers, is it husband and wife? Is it a business? Is it like the people that can say yes or no and cut you a check?
Yeah,
How many?
It's either or. Yeah, I work with businesses as well as individual households.
Okay, so you're dealing with anyone from one decision maker to multiple, right?
Correct.
How about yours?
Same. I mean, like a lot of we deal with a lot of nonprofits, so usually there's a board
Okay.
that we have to deal with, or it could just be like the one marketing department, depending on how big it is in a company.
All right, and so when it's a board, do you get to present to the board, or do you? Okay, good. That's good. Good. How about yours?
Very similar. Boards, marketing teams, but usually C-suite.
Okay. So you have to deal with all of the potential dysfunctions within the C-suite.
We help solve them a lot of the times.
Yeah.
Yes.
Dana?
Yeah, so we sell cutting tools. So we're originally selling to the guys on the machine, a better mousetrap, for better words, right? But it also has to pass specs, so engineering is involved, procurement wants it for the cheapest price. CFO, if you can get to them, wants better terms.
Right.
CEO wants to have a good relationship with good partner, so.
Right. So there's at least 5.
You never really know which of those people are the final decision maker either. It could be
Exactly.
any or all of them.
Exactly.
Individuals and parents, because we do youth classes.
Okay. So every example, even if it's just 2, it's way more complicated than just the normal buyer's journey. I was presenting to a group the other day, and they had 20 decision makers, 20 potential decision makers. So it's not just one route, it's any one of these routes. Have you ever planned a road trip where like everybody's supposed to meet up at one spot and they're starting from a different spot? And it's like, we're all going to meet up in, East Lansing, and we're going to be there at noon. You can already think of whether it's family or friends, the person that's going to go to Kalamazoo instead. And like, oh wait, I'm sorry, I thought we were going to, this place. And so they're the ones that are way off here on the side. And there's the person that you can think of probably that is going to go the night before. They're going to be there already. They'll be the first one there. There's so many different routes that people are taking based on how they show up and where they are. And we have to take that into account, because it's not just about selling them the product. It's about where is it that they're at, and how are they getting there, and what all is going on in their head. Because here's the real thing that's happening. Our customers don't know. They have 1,000 monkeys in their head screaming and all trying to get attention. And everybody's pain threshold went up post-pandemic. Everybody's attention went down, because there's just such an onslaught of all the new change that's happening with all the AI, all the social media, all the different channels, all the distractions. Like, there's a ton going on in our clients' heads, and they ultimately are struggling with what they're doing on a daily basis. There was a study that was done in 2017 of 106 different C-suite executives around the world. 85% of those CEOs said that their teams struggled to identify the right problems or the right root cause of the problems plaguing their business. 85% struggled, and they said their teams are good. They said their teams are, doing good work, but 85% of the time they're pursuing the wrong problems. And 87% of them said that comes at a significant cost to their organization. They don't know exactly what's going on. So part of it is we're often pitching products thinking they know what we know, and thinking that we're assuming that they're trying to solve that same problem, but we don't really often know that. And they're struggling themselves. There's this statistic just blew me away. This is out of a strategy in business, and then they ultimately wrote a book about this. A large project is, in this context, considered anything from a kitchen renovation to building a nuclear power plant. Something big that involves multiple steps and multiple decision makers. Over 90% of the time they go over budget or they go over time, and it's like 70 to 80% of the time they do both. So anyone remember the Big Dig in Boston? They had this really simple project that they were going to put a tunnel under the city instead of all the expressways going through the city. Ended up being, it was supposed to take 3 or 5 years, ended up taking like 10 to 12, and was multiple dozens of millions of dollars over budget. They don't know. So, and it's not that our customers are not smart. It's just that they don't often frame the problem that they're trying to solve in the proper way. And that's a key way for us to think about how we want to show up. Because really, it is definitely about solving problems. And it's also about relationships. And any of you that have, do you guys like to read? Anyone like read sales books on that? There's a book that came out years ago called The Challenger Sale. You laugh. I'm going to go home and read that sales book. My daughter always teased me. She's like, I read boring business books, Dad. Like, read a novel. Actually, I'll save you some time. So the challenge of sale was all about finding the right insights to challenge the client's way of thinking. And also they created these archetypes. And so the challenger was the number one archetype. The archetype that they threw under the bus that they said was the lowest performing rep was the relationship builder. And they had a very special way of identifying that person. The problem that they missed, in my opinion, is that you don't get the right to be a disruptor and challenge their process unless you have a relationship. Because if I just show up with what you're doing with your board or with your team and I disrupt it without a relationship, even if my insight's brilliant, most people are going to go, you're just being a jerk. Why are you doing that? And I think this is part of what created a bigger rift between sales and customers. Because we should be thinking about how we help them navigate their problems, because they don't always do it in the right way. So if you were going to navigate some unknown terrain, what would you seek out to help you? Experts? What kind of expert? If you're going to try to get from here to someplace that you don't know, what kind of expert are you going to look for?
A mentor who's done it before.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So is it going to be someone that looks like this guy? My sales training buddies get so mad at me when I show this. Like, nobody wants to be that anymore. But we all kind of, this is the guy we thought of, right? Like, we thought of that, like, hey, which nobody wants. If we're going to go somewhere where we don't know where we're going, we want someone like these people, right? Like someone that is an expert, that knows where they're going, knows how to get there, has been there before, understands all the stuff that could happen along the way. So I like to think that sales is not anything about convincing, influencing, or persuading. It's about guiding. It's about guiding them from where they are to where they ultimately want to be, and helping them navigate the terrain that is in their way that's causing them to lose track or pursue the wrong routes. And it needs to be about their best decision. Because ultimately, if I'm not a good fit for your organization, if it doesn't come from me first, I'm doing you a disservice. I'm taking up your time, and I'm impeding you from where you ultimately want to be. It has to be about their best decision. So if you're thinking, so the first real big shift in how you show up is, don't think of yourself as a salesperson. Think of yourself as a guide. Think of yourself as somebody that knows in your particular domain, in your particular world of expertise, you're someone that can help your client transform from where they are to where they ultimately need to be. Now that involves a whole bunch of other stuff that we'll get into when we get into sales process and when we get into thinking about the client's world. But many people struggle with the idea of like, well, I have to sell them. I have to go out and sell, and I don't want to sell. You don't have to. But what you should do is guide. And one of the simple shifts that can happen in that is that we've all successfully helped people navigate issues, whether you've given them directions on how to get somewhere, or if you've just helped a friend sit down and think through a problem that they were struggling with. We've all already done it. So the beauty of thinking in terms of being a guide instead of a salesperson is none of that negative stereotyping comes with it. Because if you've ever had somebody help guide you or navigate you, you've undoubtedly been what? Grateful, thankful. And if all of the conditioning that we've had through all of our lives in the movies and then the books and in the things we see, a guide is usually someone that is trusted, well thought of, and can be any sort of archetype that we want. It doesn't have to be the, hey type guy. So you're going to think in terms of your knowledge, your insight, and your expertise in a way that helps the client navigate their problems. And that will include problem identification. So in the sales training world, The number one problem with people being effective at sales is a need to be liked. If I need Michael to like me, how likely am I to ask him the uncomfortable questions that I know he needs to think through in order to get his best results? Think I'm going to want to do that? And if it comes to the point where it's going to talk about money, you know, what are the things that we're all taught as kids? We're not supposed to talk about politics, money, and religion, right? Well, when you're in sales, you definitely have to talk about money, and you definitely have to talk about the politics of their organization if you're selling to an organization. But if I have a need to be liked, I'm not gonna be willing to ask Michael the questions that are gonna be best for him, because I'm gonna be worried about me. But if I'm a guide, if I'm not worried about convincing, persuading, or influencing, if I'm just like, hey, Michael, I know where you want to go, and here's the best way to do it. But we got to think about this, this, and this before you get there. Like it takes all of the weirdness away, because I'm not trying to persuade, convince, or influence. So what do you guys think of that? How does that sound? Does that sound? Any feedback?
It sounds like a lot of my sales people, right? So again, on the finance side of things, I have these discussions a lot with the sales guys. Oh, there's no way we can get this deal unless we match the same price as our national competitors. We can't, right? We don't buy as much as them. We can't match them. And it's really, I think, all about that first one, needing to be liked, right? What's the easiest way to sell? Hey, what do you need from me, and I'll give you exactly that.
Right.
So, hey, can you sell it to me for $1?
Right. If
Yep, can do. Let's go have a beer now. Right?
Yeah. If all I need is, blue mottled glasses, and you show up with blue mottled glasses, well, that's all really easy. But here's what sales guys, and you probably already know this, Dana, but 90% of the time it's not about price. 90% of the time it's not about price. Because the other thing is they're probably not calling on the real decision maker. And they probably don't know what the real issues are behind price. They're probably just talking to the procurement person, and the procurement person is going to be like, hey, give me a better price. Because, by the way, I'm bonused. What's in it for me? I'm bonused on getting the best price. So if I can convince somebody as the purchasing person to make them give me a better price, I get a better bonus. So these are the big four that prevent salespeople from affecting. And this one is why most deals end up dying. So if you remember one of those original stats, 67% of deals go nowhere. So 67% of the deals started by salespeople end in no decision. And that's because they didn't effectively qualify and do discovery to understand what is really going on in the client's world.
I think too, like the fear of rejection, it's like if you keep getting told no over and over again, it's like, I just don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
I'm just gonna wait for sales to come to me.
Right. So, but if you're not worried about being,
Quit sales early in my career. I don't have the skin for this. I don't.
No, it's just
Sucks. I
irritating.
like to be
Yeah.
liked.
yeah. Well, and so like I tell people, anybody can learn to do sales. Anybody. Some of the best salespeople I've met are introverts and don't like crowds, don't like going out for drinks. They like to solve problems. They like to help people. They're curious. But if we think in terms that I have to sell you something, all of this pressure comes with it. Except for, there's like 5% of the population that for whatever reason through their upbringing, they're phenomenal salespeople. They're just like, money falls out of their pockets. They're so good at it. But that's very rare. For the rest of us, we have to figure out a process and a methodology in a way that we can game it into our heads. And one of the easiest ones I saw was just become a guide and take all of that stuff away. Because then my job as a guide is to navigate you from where you are to where you ultimately want to be. And so now my responsibility is your psychological safety, your ability to get from where you are to where you ultimately want to be, and it takes all of the pressure off of me. In fact, if I'm not the right one, then it's dependent on me to then raise my hand and say, you know what, I can get you here, but to get over here, we need to have somebody else help. So when you're guiding, all those self-limiting beliefs go away. So the first big threat in that sales knot is no differentiation. Well, if you become a guide instead of a salesperson, you're gonna be able to get rid of this threat and create a different approach for engaging with your clients. So I'll leave this one up here just for a minute, but like, you can add value simply by showing up differently. If you show up in a way that is not like everybody else, you're going to stand out. And if you show up with the idea that you're guiding them or navigating them or helping them get from where they are to where they ultimately need to be, and avoiding those threats and challenges that are in their way, you're going to show up differently, which will allow you to stand out. And you don't need to sell them. You don't need to persuade them. You don't need to convince them. One of my first jobs was I sold life insurance, and they literally taught us that I would hand the contract with a pen resting on the paper, and you would tilt it just enough that the pen would roll off and land on the desk. And if I did that and my pen lands here, more than likely you're going to say, while you have that in your hand,
Oh my gosh, that's so cheesy.
isn't it? It's like, I mean, it's worse than a cheese board cheesy. I mean, who wants that? Like, I didn't want to do that. I thought that is like, because you don't want to coerce or trick anybody. You ultimately want to just help them solve their issues. So you can untangle that first sales knot by just thinking about how you want to show up, and show up differently with a different mindset, and one that would cover these three. So your first activity, take a few minutes and just start jotting out, okay, if I was in my domain, in my world that I know, if I was going to be a guide to help somebody move from where their problem state is to where they would be much, much better off, what are some of the ideas that come to mind just by putting yourself in the sense of, I'm now a guide navigating clients, where they need to be within this particular domain, which is your business. If you think of your product, your product is, this right here. These are all the awesome features, benefit, functions, outcomes. There's all the cool stuff about what your product is inside this little P. But there's all of this around your product in the client's world, with the way they interact with things, with the way they buy it, the way they store it, the way they think about it, the way it interacts with other parts of their business. There's all this other stuff around you that your client has no idea. They don't think of it, but you do. You've forgotten more about this. You take probably a lot of this for granted. That if you think in terms of storage or community or resource use or friction of purchasing, like any of those things in and around it, that becomes gold for, again, further differentiation or further helping the client see the issue for what it is, total delivered cost versus unit cost. Maybe your competitors are selling a tool for $5 less, but they have to replace it 3 times as often. It's like, well then, geez, what's your change time? This one changes out faster, or it lasts longer, or cuts cleaner. There's all sorts of ways that when you get to the right decision maker, which could be a variety of people along the way, it helps you stand out.
I think the first place to start is really just asking questions, finding out what's working, not working, where the client's trying to get to, what their goals are. I work in marketing, so strategy is like, I see myself as a guide, right? So you can't help your client unless you know what their struggles are. So my job is to listen, not to talk, not to tell them what to do until I've got more information to work with.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you. And strategy is huge. It's one of the biggest things I run into. In fact, what started me getting interested in this was SBAM polled all of the businesses, in Michigan, and the number one response was sales strategy and sales improvement. And strategy really helps you, and that's part of what I hope to help you accomplish today. Ultimately, when you're guiding, you have a destination in mind, and so you're helping that client set that strategy on how to get there. And strategy is way different today than it's ever been before. It used to be this thing that we would do, and we would put it on the shelf and go, there's our strategy. We did our strategic plan, and it just sat there, and no one ever did anything with it. Now it's daily. It's daily adjustments on, we wanted to take this path, but the tree fell in front of it, or the bridge is out, or there's a rock falling, or whatever. Now we have to go this way. Strategy is much more interactive and constant today than it ever was.
Identify problems, ask questions, listen to their pain points, research, brainstorm, create a plan with solutions, and then I think that's where we fall flat, is we just provide them with what they're asking for, but then going beyond that and giving them added value solutions beyond their problem that maybe they didn't think about.
Absolutely. So if we think of, I like to use the example of New Year's resolutions, right? You guys make them or not?
Love making them.
Right? Who said they love it? You love making them, right?
Yeah.
So
January 4th.
January 1, I'm going to do, this cool thing that's going to make me a star, right? When do most New Year's resolutions fail? What's the date that most of us abandon them?
7.
It's usually by most people by the end of February, it's over.
You're just
That is a long time.
Well, we kind of we ride it for a while, right? But to your point, so kind of I had the strategy, right? I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna stop, eating donuts. I'm gonna whatever it is. I'm gonna do this, or I'm gonna go here, right? But to your point, and play that out a little bit further. What you said.
Like for example, when we're submitting, say, a proposal or something, we'll provide exactly what they're wanting, but then it's the agencies that are winning are providing value added things on there, and a lot of times it's we need to think beyond, because it might be something that the client might not be thinking of.
Exactly.
And so adding that value that we can also do all these other things, not just what you're asking for.
Yeah.
You might just not even know.
Exactly. Because if we go back to that slide with the person with all the dust above them, they don't exactly know. They don't often know. And so why most of these fail is if this is, can you guys see this all right? Is it? So if this is where they need to be, this is the top of the mountain, right? This is here. So go back to that linear track. So this is me on 1-1. I'm going to get here. Ta-da! I see this. I'm here. What I don't see is these are all the things that are going to knock me off or, keep me. I've got to think through all of these little steps because your client's not doing it. One of the things that, so I'm doing a fractional leadership role at 2 companies right now that had to replace their sales leader. So I'm their replacement sales leader temporarily for 2 different companies. I know better. But in both cases, I got sidetracked into doing other stuff in my temporary job than what was really advancing it forward. And so we had to put in place a governance model that was highly specific about these are the things I'm going to do, these are the things I'm not going to do. Because you don't want to pay me to sit in these meetings, you want to pay me for movement. When we create these the reason these fail is it's not always just willpower. In fact, our willpower, it's really what is the mission? What is the compelling reason? And compelling reason, when we get into sales process further, compelling reason is what's driving them. Because then the compelling reason is when everything's going well, then you have that really bad day that knocks you down here, when it's like everything in the world seems like it's against you. And you wish you would just hear one no instead of 30 no's. What makes you pick it up and keep going here? It's not always willpower, but it's commitment to the plan. And we don't often give everybody the steps. So we kind of set the strategy, but it's that execution of their ability to pursue it and tying that to something that really has meaning to them that propels it along. And so we'll hear from Michael, then I'll share another idea.
Essentially, for what I do, I mean, it's very straightforward. This is basically what they want to do, how long they want their season. We have different products as well as a lot of other pest control companies. So we try to go for the eco-friendly options, but not everybody wants that. Or someone's like, hey man, I live in the woods. It's like eco-friendly stuff like that. It's mainly like listening to what they want.
Yeah. My son, he does guiding of kids on little overnight adventures. And some of the people that he works with, I interviewed for the book when thinking about guiding, because I wanted to know, if you're a real guide, like if you're really trying to take people into the woods or into an adventure where they're going to be away from home, sleeping in a tent, encountering bugs and scratches and falls and getting wet, what are the things that go through your mind? What are the things that you have to anticipate? What are the checklists that you have to put in place so that you can know, hey, 4 hours in, they're going to be really hungry, they're going to be really cranky, their pack's probably going to be too heavy. If we're navigating for them, if we're guiding, we have to think about all those things. When that 6th grader plops their rear end down in the middle of the trail and says, I'm not moving, what do you do? We need to anticipate those and think through those along the context of what we know our clients are engaging in. Because and it seems, I'm sure everything I've said to you so far is not earth-shattering. It's all stuff that we kind of know, but it's putting it in the different context so you think through it separately. So all the other firms are giving them what they want, but is it really giving them where, what they need or where they need to be or how they get there? When we go into the discussion about the sales process, we're going to think about qualification and discovery a little differently. Because from the customer standpoint, most customers say the discovery is a waste of time from salespeople's standpoint. Because what am I doing? If I'm trying to sell you something, all I'm doing is talking to you, waiting to hear that word when I think I got you, and then it's like, wham! Then I'm gonna pitch the thing to you. I'm not listening to understand. I'm not listening. I'm not asking questions to try to figure out where it is that you're going or what you're struggling with, or who might be in the business that doesn't want her project to succeed. One of the things that led me to this idea is Joseph Campbell's The Hero with 1,000 Faces, the idea of the journey, the hero's journey. Every great movie, whether it's Lord of the Rings or Star Wars or adventures of some sort, they go through this hero's journey. And our clients are no different. They go from, I don't want to deal with the fact that I have pests. I don't want that. I just want the things to go away. Why do I have to deal with this? There's a refusal of the call, is what it's called in the story, refuse the call. But eventually they have to get into it. They have to accept the journey. They have to step over the threshold and go into it. And then when they do that, there's allies and enemies. There's people that want you to succeed. There's people that don't want you to succeed. There's life that's going to trip you up. Our clients are having to navigate all of that. And as a guide, we can help them overcome all of it.